Welcome back, everybody. We are back with yet another week of our silly little podcast.
Welcome back, everybody. Just going to be Paul and Christoph today. If you guys haven't listened or watched last week's episode, it's very different from our normal format. We had an individual named Matt on the podcast, and we went through his training and food and, kind of saw what he was doing to see if there's anything that we could suggest that, could help him get out of the plateau that he's in. So definitely check that out. It's called Financial Audit number 1, Matt A. He's my coworker that I work with on an everyday basis, obviously. And, I've been checking in with him throughout the week, and from what we wrote him, he's really, really loving it. He's not nearly spending as much time in the gym. For those that haven't watched, he usually spent like a couple hours lifting every day. He's not nearly spending as much time now, and he just loves the lifts every single time. He's not overdoing it anymore. He's able to train with efficiency and effectiveness, essentially, because he's not doing so much. It is like we addressed it last episode. He had a coach that wrote everything down, and it sucks that he wasted the money on that coach, considering like the program she wrote for him was just not very effective. There was some good stuff that we kept in there, but it was just really, really overdoing it, way too much volume. So he told me this week that he ended up, I don't know if it was this week or previously, he said that he wasn't going to keep working with her, and she got super butthurt about it. But most coaches are like that. A lot of coaches are very emotional about their clients. So I know plenty of coaches who start shit and cause drama and whatnot when a client leaves them, even though it's almost never personal when a client leaves them. So,
which is the really unfortunate side of things.
Yeah, like it wasn't anything that she did wrong. Do we disagree with the way that she wrote his training? Yeah, but like he moved on just because it wasn't the right fit. And yeah, you could say, oh, that's about him, but that's what it's all about. He's not working with her for her. He's working with her for him. So yeah, you got to understand that as a coach. And sometimes even in the bodybuilding world, like coaches will lose clients because something's not working, and it's not because of anything personal. It's just, look, I need to make a change for myself. And I think that, moving this other coach might be a good fit, and I'm going to try this out for a little bit, and it's nothing against you, and they'll still fucking cause shit. It's so retarded. I know we're not supposed to say that word, but it's fucking true. So anyways, that's just the update on last week's episode. So definitely check it out. We're going to try to do that on a regular basis. My guess is probably once a month. I think I would love it if we could do it every couple weeks or so, but we'd run out of people probably pretty quick, because that's like 26 people a year we're going to need to audit. So I think one person a month is definitely a lot more doable.
And I mean, we have, lots of people in the gym world, but at the same time, we're going to run out of, people we know pretty quick. We can start bringing in people we don't know, but then it's not the same.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I think once a month would be good. And then like for Matt, for instance, we might check in a couple months. So like we might do like one person 1 month, and then 2 months later we'll check in with them. So like kind of alternate. So do like person A, then person B, and then check in with person A, and then check in with person B, and then go back and do new people, So, and then we could have Matt maybe recurring every like 6 months or something, and we'll audit it, see how he's doing, and then change it up or something. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
No, we'll change it up and make him audit someone on the podcast.
Yeah. We'll teach him the ways of the fitness audit. But yeah, so how's been training going, man? We haven't really talked about your training lately or anything.
Yeah, and it's been, I'm back on doing my own plan. I do still use a lot of what was given to me, but I really started to lock in with a ton of different unilateral movement things. Even though, I'm still training both sides now, but I'm doing a lot of one-sided exercises. So like yesterday was
doing
back.
That, you're saying?
What's that?
You're saying you're still doing that?
Yeah, now I'm adding in the other side, but I'm still doing like single arm movement or single side movement things. So like
you're
yesterday
still
was
moving over.
Yeah,
you're still
exactly.
Yeah.
So yesterday was back, and when I do my rows, like for example, long rows, I'll take a handle and I do one side at a time, because I just lock in a lot better. My muscle is way better in that sense. In words of Arnold, I have become the muscle. And so it's been good. I just have to now that I don't have a person that I pay, I now feel my consistency. I mean, I'm still in the gym 4 times a week, but now I'm talking a little bit more in my workouts. I'm getting carried away with the silly things in my workouts, so I need to
Yeah.
lock back in a little bit. It's
Hmm.
nothing that's, I'm still getting my work done. It's not like I'm throwing in the towel.
Hmm.
Um, but I've also worked out with a couple people this week, so that might be part of it. I don't really
Yeah.
work out with many people anymore. So now that I've worked out with 2 people this week, that probably has a decent amount of the credit towards my silliness in there. But
Yeah. Especially because I mean, I know that you live with some of like your best friends and my best friends, so it's like it's even harder. If
mhm.
you have like a training partner that you only go to the gym with and you guys lift pretty frequently, so you don't really talk too much, you just lift. That's one thing. But then like if I come up there and we train, it's going to be a long training session because we never train, you
Yeah,
know.
exactly.
So
And I guess the best update is that I finally got to deadlifting again, which
mhm.
with my broken hand was not possible. Um, so we were able to do that. I didn't do super duper heavy. I maxed at 315, so it's not like I
That's
went super
I mean,
well.
that's to you that's not a lot, but a lot of people find that really really heavy,
Yeah, I
you
mean,
know.
back when I was deadlifting consistently,
Yeah.
315 was what, my second set, maybe second warm up set, something like that. Because I like to four plates and then 4.5 plates was my working set, so it was a
Of
little
how
bit
many
up there.
reps?
Working sets for me are going between, you're failing between 6 and 8.
Damn, that's actually a lot of weight.
Yeah.
You're pushing a lot of
Um,
weight, especially for deadlifts. That's crazy.
Sir, I'm pulling a lot of weight. Could you
Yeah,
please
yeah,
get it
yeah.
right?
Get you quoted.
So, but the one thing is that my hand did spaz out a couple times, so I had to throw the wrist
Hmm.
wrap on. And I know we talked about it yesterday, but I threw the wrist wrap on even when I was doing 225, which for me
Hmm.
is, I mean, that thing moves fairly easily. So the fact that I had to do that was a little bit of a step back for me. But it just took it took everything out of it. I could just lock in, mentally with my back and really crush the reps. So
Hmm.
overall, I'm excited to be deadlifting again. I did rack pulls for a long, long time with the coach because there was a form issue with my deadlifts. But the buddy I worked out with yesterday didn't really notice anything too bad out of my form. So we're just gonna keep rocking with that for now.
Nice. You ever seen the hook lifting straps?
Yeah. So when I had my broken hand and I was still going to the gym, my coach actually brought a fairly up there bodybuilder around, who does more so traveling. So like he travels to different gyms as a bodybuilder, and does different blogs about it and different things like that. His Instagram is pretty big for that.
Hmm.
Um, and so when he was there, he was actually talking to me about how I can literally throw it on a hard cast and still do like curls and stuff with it.
Yeah, yeah, because the claw grips, it's a metal piece of
Yeah.
metal that actually does the lifting essentially, or the grip at least for you. So it's something to consider because you'd be pulling essentially from your wrist. So I mean, how you would do it with curls, I have no idea. Um, because it's like you're gripping with just four fingers. You're not using your thumb essentially. So I don't know how curls would work, but for a lot of stuff, you can really incorporate the hooks. Especially for like deadlifts, like so that you're not pulling from your hand really at all. Like you could still use it to balance, but like you don't need to worry about it really hurting your hand too much. I had them at one point, and I bought them thinking that they were basically like straps, like not really like your regular straps, like the ones where you wrap right around the bar, like the ones that they're like the ones I was thinking of are Cobra grips, but they're like basically they come around the front. It's like a piece of leather, and you
Yep.
grab the piece of leather. It's super easy to get attached. I thought I was buying those, but I ended up buying hooks, and I was like, "Yeah, fuck it, I'll try it." And it was cool, but it doesn't work on your grip at all, obviously. So it's like they have their uses, and I think your situation is definitely like a perfect use case.
Yeah, and I don't have to use it for much. Like a lot of what I do, I can grip again. Even on like heavy, if I did like a heavy set for like even lat pull downs or even pull ups, like for me, that's like a tender area in terms of how I'm gripping it. But even that now doesn't really bother me. Um, Only thing is, I'm not boxing for cardio anymore because I can't really throw a left hook anymore.
Hmm.
So I gotta I gotta keep doing my regular cardio, and
Yeah.
I recommend giving boxing a try if you've never given that a try for cardio, because that's a wild workout. Even if you just do
Hmm.
heavy bag or speed bag for 5 minutes, you're walking out of there in just a complete dead sweat.
Yep. Yeah, that is pretty difficult. I can tell you that for sure.
And then if you
Yeah,
start
it's
sparring with someone, that's a whole other thing too, because now you're taking
yeah,
body shots.
yeah. You gotta keep your core tight and shit, so you're not getting
Uh
your
huh.
intestines ruined.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's difficult for sure. Um, Anything else that you've like updated in the past like week or so? Like, is there anything that you've changed up? Like, or
Nope.
you just kind of go through the motions?
Diet wise, the only change I made was I
Hmm.
changed from chicken breast to chicken thighs. I did that
Hmm.
just for the a little bit. I mean, it's still is protein packed, but there's a little bit higher fat levels because I'm not eating as much yogurt in my diet now.
Hmm.
Um, so that kind of helps me balance it, and it's also a lot easier for me when I do my meal prep because I can just bake the chicken thighs, whereas with the chicken breast I was cutting them up and I was doing all that work, and now I can just toss them in and forget about it.
Yeah, I love chicken
So
thighs.
oh yeah,
They're so
but
good.
I'm also seasoning food again. I'm not just doing salt and pepper. I've
Hmm.
been I found a nice chili lime one that I've been using, and
Yeah.
it's nice to be able to season food again.
Yeah, I mean, I like to me when you were working with your coach, it didn't really make sense to not season it. Like, I can understand not putting like heavy calorie sauces and shit on it, or like doing a lot of like sugar based seasonings. I can understand
Yeah.
staying away from those, but like even when I'm in prep right now, essentially, I'm still putting seasoning on my chicken, which I found a new blend and I fucking love it so much. Oh my god, is it good?
I think it was
Um,
more so just to have consistency. So, like, for example, if I seasoned
yeah,
it one way and then, like, let's say I run out and I can't find that anymore, then that changes up the consistency maybe in a period of time when he needed me to be locked in. Um,
yeah, I
and
think like that something like that is a bit more in the world of prep or cutting
yeah,
because it's not just like when you're in prep it's not just keeping calories down, it's also keeping like number of ingredients down and everything too, because you don't want to be digesting a million different ingredients at once, which is what like these some of these seasonings have. So like that's one of the first things. Like I only ever use seasonings, and one of the first things I check is one, if it's not sugar free on the label, what like what like where is it numerically or like chronologically is sugar on the actual nutrition label? Because sometimes it'll be like, oh, it's 0 calories for a quarter of a teaspoon, but like a quarter of a teaspoon is fucking nothing. But then
yep,
if you look at the nutrition label, it'll say like, oh, sugar is your second ingredient, but because it's not technically over 5 calories per quarter tablespoon, they don't actually have to report it. So it's like this is the problem we face with these sugars is you got to make sure that that what you're buying doesn't have a shit ton of sugar. And what I have now, it's like a Kingsford all purpose. It's like the seventh or eighth ingredient is sugar. It's like a dash of it. And you could tell that there's not much in it because it's like pure red. Like the seasoning's like pure red. It's like mostly paprika. It's like paprika and salt. And then I have another one, which is Rib Rack. They make a lot of good sugar-free seasonings that are very basic with ingredients. And this one's a chipotle. So I mix it. Basically, it's like a barbecue chipotle that I mixed like 1 to 1. I just poured both tubes inside of a little like Tupperware container, and then I just like throw that some of that seasoning in a bag and basically like mix it with the chicken and then just let it sit overnight, and it's so good. Um, but yeah, definitely staying away from sauces is definitely key because sauces will add up calories real
oh
fast. I
yeah,
mean, even like A1, which people wouldn't even realize has sugar in it, and it's 2 tablespoons is 15 calories. But then you put like if you put that on your chicken, you're putting like 10, 15, 20 tablespoons on there, and all of a sudden you just racked up tons of calories without even realizing it. So
yep.
it adds up. It adds up.
And it's more so the people don't realize the sugar, and I know you
Mhm,
touched on that, but like that little bit of sugar adds up so much, and it's across
mhm,
everything. Like when you go out to eat and just about anywhere. Like I was talking with my buddy who I worked out with yesterday because I got Five Guys.
mhm.
The burgers taste good for a reason. There's sugar in the burgers, like, and the same with I mean, I get the shakes from there just because it's super calorie dense too, but that
Mhm.
little bit is just, it adds up super quick.
Oh, so
So
much sugar in their shakes, I'm
oh yeah.
sure. Yeah. Um, but yeah, so it's just you got to be careful with the seasoning and stuff. But granted, like I said, I think that when it came to your plan with your coach, I wouldn't think that seasonings would be too big of a deal.
Yeah.
But I mean, plan call for whatever it is. I got an update from my coach today, which it was really quick. Usually he doesn't update that fast. Usually really busy on the weekends, but he has me doing now 4 days low carb, 1 day high carb, and then now my cardio is 35 minutes every session rather than 30 minutes, which doesn't sound like a lot more, but it's almost adding a whole nother cardio session a week
Yep.
because I was doing 5 of them for 30 minutes. Now I'm doing 5 for 35, which adds another 25 minutes of cardio each week, which is, like I said, almost a whole nother session. So got that added. So that'll be fun. But I really don't mind because I just end up reading during my cardio and I just bang out books that way. So
And are you just
really don't
doing
mind.
like incline walking? Are you hitting
Yeah.
stairmaster or?
No, incline walking is what the plan calls for right now,
Yeah.
which is so I started out at 12 degrees and 2.5 miles an hour. And then every session, what I would do is I would slowly increase the speed. And then, so like basically what I would do is like my first session, I did 2.5 miles for 10 minutes, 2.6 miles for 10 minutes, and then 2.7 miles for 10 minutes. So, and then the next cardio session, I go 2.6, 2.7, 2.8. So slowly increasing my walking speed. And then once I was up to 3 miles an hour for every cardio session, then I started increasing the incline. But now I'm done all of that. So now I'm doing 15 degrees at 3 miles an hour every single session.
Yeah.
So, it can be pretty taxing. So I mean, I do slightly use my hands just to make sure I'm staying balanced and in keeping up with the treadmill. Like yesterday, my legs are so sore from leg day the previous day, so I had to really make sure that I was like kind of leaning on the machine a little bit to like just
Yeah.
get through the fucking cardio session. Um, so that was interesting. But with everything going on right now in the plan, it's wild. Like I feel like I'm making almost daily changes
I mean, you
at
were
this
saying
point.
earlier in the week that you feel like you're locked in.
Yeah, like it takes roughly 2 weeks for my body to respond to pretty much anything, including drugs. Even though like a drug half life might be like technically a day, it really starts to kick in for me 2 weeks. It's so weird, and it's exactly 2 weeks as well. So 2 weeks from Tuesday, so 2 weeks prior to Tuesday was when everything really started up for me. Between mass trend test, all the new food, all that, like it really started kicking in from 2 weeks from Tuesday, 2 weeks prior to last Tuesday, and then on Tuesday I noticed it. Like I was just like, damn. I was like, I'm making some progress right now. And then I'm like, my abs are coming in, but quite a bit more. My vascularity is increasing. Like it just clicked. And then like Wednesday, the same thing happened. And then I got a compliment from the front desk guy, completely unsolicited. And he's like, your back is looking a lot more defined. He's like, I could really see it happening. And I think I'm getting a little, not crazy, but like a tiny bit grainy. Like it's almost like my skin is thinning is kind of what it looks like. Um, so it's not like I'm getting super, super defined, but it's my skin almost has like more definition to it in a way. It's hard to explain. So my skin's kind of thinning out, but really my problem right now is just lower belly and hip fat. That's starting to show. And it's just the baby fat really at this point. So once we lose that, it'll all kind of come together because my chest is losing all of its fat. I'm getting chest veins again. And, my traps will always have veins and my legs are losing all their fat. So, it's all getting dialed in. We just got to keep pushing for the lower belly bullshit that I have to deal with. So yeah, that's the plan right now. But
Time to go get liposuction.
yeah, I got to go get what's that shit called? The cryo freeze or whatever the hell? Like there's this new thing. Body sculpting is what it's called. Body sculpting.
Yeah.
It's like this new like way of losing fat where they freeze the fat cells. through this like almost like big gun kind of thing. It looks like a big massager, you know, like one of those like big massage guns that
Yeah.
you plug in and use. It looks like that, but they like suction it to wherever you want to lose fat, and it like injects like super cold water or something. I don't know how it works, and then freezes the fat cells, and then like you're able to. It basically makes them like not so stubborn, and then you're
And
able
then
to
you
lose them
blow it up
easier.
like a balloon and you roll away.
Yeah, you're like that blueberry girl in fucking Willy
Yep.
Wonka.
Really
Yeah,
Wonka.
yeah, that's all they do. And then it shrinks back down, and you're skinnier than you were before. But yeah, so it just makes it easier to lose, and that's my biggest problem. Was like, it's not necessarily my fat percentage because it was on the higher ish side. I knew it wouldn't take long to get my abs back. They're mostly back now for the most part. Granted, all I really have now is just that stubborn baby fat, and that's what's keeping my lower two abs gone, which is so fucking annoying. Because my top four are pretty dominant right now. Like you can see them pretty consistently. But my lower two is just really not there, which sucks. But time is gonna, that's all this ever is. It's just gonna take time. So just got to keep putting it in and keep working towards it, and it'll happen. I mean, really, like I said, it really started kicking in this week. So I mean, who knows how I'm going to look next week? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it'll be
and
interesting.
that's kind of where my focus shifted to for this upcoming summer months, because I to we did make pretty decent strides in terms of packing on a little bit of size, not necessarily weight but size,
Hmm.
when I was with the coach, and a product of that was saying goodbye to the visible abs, because
Hmm.
increased fat levels and packing in as much caloric intake as we could. So for my timetable is July, so about a month and a half of just dicing down without giving up too much size, just to look good for one summer month, and then it's back to packing on.
Yeah, I mean that's part of the hardest part of like you talk to anybody who's ever competed, and that's the hardest part of rebound from a show is that you put your fat back on. And Chewy, the guy I used to kind of train with, we'll see what happens in the future because he got a new job and he might be working from 9 to 5 or something. So we might end up training again. But um, he, that was his problem because last year, like all of last year, he was lean because he was hitting different shows throughout the year. Granted, he had a few month break between, I think it might have been November, I forget. And like his previous show in August. So I think it was like 2 or 3 months break where he put on a little bit of size. But for the most part, he stayed very lean all year round. So what was funny was that's when he moved to Charlotte from Rockingham, which is about an hour and a half from here. Um, so at the time, all I ever knew him as was lean, you know?
Yeah.
And I always felt like shit lifting with him because he was so lean all the time. But then when he was done with his last show and then rebounded from that, rebound is a good thing, guys. It's not like a relationship rebound. It's like basically when you're done a show, you want to rebound from it. And ideally, you want to put on as much muscle and as little fat as possible in a short period of time because your body is going to swell back up and you're going to return to the muscle that you had before. So the goal is to not put on fat really, but to really get back the muscle memory that you had before, because when you do prep, you lose a little bit of muscle. It's going to happen, which is what anabolics helps fight against, is losing muscle. But your rebound could make or break your next show, essentially, especially if your shows are pretty close together. And part of being a prep coach is knowing proper rebound protocols. So that's the context there. So yeah, so when he went into, because he was lean year round, he never got cheat meals. He had to always stay on plan, like barely any seasoning. Like he was dialed in for like almost a fucking whole year. So he basically told my coach, because his coach is my coach. He's like, look, every week I want to get whatever I want for one meal. Like just go ape shit, like food, dessert, alcohol, whatever it is. Like he's like, I just want one meal a week where I can just do whatever I want. And he packed on the pounds real fucking fast. But now he's like, he's buff and strong, So like now I know him as buff and strong, where before he was lean and on the weakerish side. I usually, at the time, granted he was still strong. I was beating him in some of the lifts, but now it's like this dude's like, he's like I forget exactly what weight he is, but he's also like 5'5", I think. So like he's strong as shit because his limbs are much shorter than mine. So it's much more difficult for me to lift the weight that he can lift because he's not doing as much ROM as I am. But Anyways,
That's me with literally anybody else that I work out with.
but granted, when we are tall, we have a lot more weight, and because of that, like to you, 4 plates or 4.5 plates is what you were used to for deadlifts. That's a lot of weight. You're pushing a lot of weight with that. Where if you talk to someone who's shorter and weighs a lot less, that's way more weight, like pound for pound weight. That's a lot more weight to lift.
Yeah.
So something to keep in mind. I mean, the front desk guy at the gym I go to, strong as shit because he's tall. He's like 6'3", 6'4", something around your height. And he might be like a little over 200. I have no idea pounds, but like because of his height and overall his build, he just can lift a shit ton. Like he's lifting 4 plates for deadlift pretty easily. Granted, I'm not. I've never been super strong at deadlifts. Granted, I also do just lat focus entirely deadlifts, so it fucking fries my nervous system with 3 plates. But yeah, no, you gotta don't discount your strength for sure. There's pros and cons to being short and being tall, and one of them is
Well, my
generally.
favorite thing that I enjoy is that when I do my deadlifts, not recently, obviously, because I haven't done them in a long, long time, but back when I was deadlifting consistently,
Mhm,
I live and die by conventional, and I think sumo's cheating.
absolutely.
And there's a dude who was deadlifting at a area right next to me who was on the shorter side and sumo deadlifting,
Hmm.
and then he watched me load up the same amount of weight that he did, and I had almost like a foot of height on him and did it conventional. And that was kind of a he came over and talked to me about it. He was like, man, that was big, they were able to do that conventional. And I was like, I try and tell people never do sumo. I mean, the only exception is like a glute focused like, but even then I stray away from ever recommending sumo deadlifts.
Hmm.
um but yeah, just being able to do it conventional at 6'4" and move that kind of weight is pretty gratifying.
Yeah,
Not
I
ratifying.
mean, yeah. The thing with sumo and conventional too is that it's not even like proportionately an enormous difference between sumo and conventional when you're lifting. Like it's not like I can do sumo and then all of a sudden slap on 3 more plates on my
Well,
deadlift.
yeah, I know that.
I'm just saying, like, it's like I just don't understand why people do the sumo. Because you're not like there's this one video that's going crazy from one of the like zoo culture gyms, whatever, and he like lifted like 7 or 8 plates and like locked out, and the furthest plate almost didn't even wasn't even like was almost even touching the fucking ground. And he's like, easy. And somebody's like, dude, you barely even got it off the ground. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like he's like, you act like he like failed it the week before, but then got it that week, and he's just like easy. It's like, dude, do it conventional. You will never be able to get that fucking weight off the ground.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, anyways, that's my opinion. But
Ain't no but
um,
peanut.
yeah, and conventional is just the way to go. And I just sumo's so dumb. There's no point of
Yeah.
it. But anyways, yeah. So with my response to everything, I can tell you for fucking sure, I could see why people get addicted to trend. This shit is ridiculous. I know we kind of talked about it briefly, but it is insane.
Are you
Um,
seeing any of the negative effects that we also talked about?
no, not really. Actually, I think part of it is because I'm at such a low dose at 100 mgs, allegedly. So
Hmm.
like, it's mentally, it's really not even there. Which I'm glad about. I didn't think it would be, but I didn't. I was, kind of keeping an eye out to see if there's anything that kind of added to that, and there really hasn't been any sort of like paranoia or anger added or anything like that. Some irritability, but that's mainly from the masteron, I think. Test kind of adds to it too. Any test is going to add to your mental really instability, and heighten your overall emotional responses to things. Um, so trend really wasn't too bad, or isn't too bad. And the reason I think that people get addicted to it is because even at 100 megs, like training feels so fucking good all the time.
Is
And
that just from like an energy standpoint, or
it just
what's
feels
the
good.
difference?
Yeah, you have a lot more energy going throughout your workout. Granted, I also started taking Cardarine again. I was out for Cardarine for like a month because I didn't have the money for it, but taking Cardarine again, and that helps with energy. But um, trying to it just feels fucking good. It's just like it just feels so good to lift, and it's like the endorphins and dopamine, whatever the hell it is, that kicks in just kicks in tenfold. And because tren is so heavy on anabolic attachment, it attaches to your anabolic your androgen receptors within your brain very, very well. And that's the reason why it feels good. And that's the reason why it affects you very much mentally. And it just feels so fucking good to lift. Again, like I said, I'm at 100 megs. It's really not that much. I don't know if we'll increase it over time or if we'll just take it out completely. I have no idea. But overall, it feels really good. And I could see why people don't ever want to come off it, because when you come off trend, I talked to people about it, but just as I was starting it, and they've said that basically tren is kind of like you get that feeling when you go to the gym when you're motivated, like you want to go. Like that's what tren will do. It'll make you want to go to the gym. Then when you're off trend, it just feels like you have to go. Like it's like a chore, because you're so used to relying on that motivation from trend that going to the gym after that just feels like a chore. But it's just normal. You're just back to normal, essentially, is what happens. So I could see why people get addicted to trend. Masteron is interesting because it's a hardening agent. So it's like when I lift and I squeeze, I could really feel my fucking muscles like tearing my skin. Like that's what Masteron kind of does for me. And I was doing rag pulls the other day, which I realized doesn't really agree with my lats too much. Deadlifts I actually get a lot more progress from, I've noticed. And I could have sworn I was trying to do 4 plates in a quarter and I just couldn't get it because my nervous system was just fucking fried. And I could have sworn I was going to break my damn rib cage, just squeezing my lats so hard. I'm like, I got to stop because I'm going to fucking break a bone, which can happen. You can break a rib by flexing your lats too hard. And that's what I felt like was going to happen. My ribs hurt, the sides and back of my ribs was killing me after. So you got to be careful. But yeah, it's interesting. It's definitely interesting. And the food is, even though I'm still taking in a decent amount of food for the most part, I'm still hungry as shit all the time now. And I just want to eat, and waking up in the middle of the night to take a piss, like my stomach starts growling. So we're in prep for sure. Definitely.
Now, would your wife agree with what you just said on the mental side of things?
Yeah, probably. She knows that sometimes I get irritable and anger can really take over. And I've just told her look, if I ever need to take a breath or something, just give me a second. Which we talked about a couple weeks ago, but yeah, I just really just need to take a second sometimes and calm down. We had a little argument last night and the anger was really fucking building up. So that's one thing you got to be careful of with this stuff, is that it can build up. And if you don't have good control over your anger, and you're very, you have a very short temper, it's not going to be very good. I know people who blow a fuse 3 seconds after a little bit of anger is introduced to their system. So even considering not that they would never, but let's say if they were to take any sort of anabolic, it would just make it so much worse.
Well, it's that joke or that meme of the people at the gym and you bump into them by accident and they go, "Wow!"
There's one guy that does that at conventions. He bumps into the guys and gets the reaction.
Lat spreading on his
yeah, the invisible lat. Yeah. So it can be a problem, but I'm in a place where when I was a kid, I had really bad temper issues and I had to really work on it for years to get them better. And because of that, it's really not too bad now. I can keep it under control for the most part. There are times where I want to fucking punch a hole in the wall and freak out and go lift or whatever because I'm so angry, but I just need to take a minute and I'll be all right. I did that last night before going to bed. I just read for a few minutes and I just calmed down because I was just so fucking worked up. So it could be a problem, but I think the trend itself is really not doing anything to me mentally that it could potentially do. I think it's mainly just a Masteron and test, which is the majority of my cycle. So, so that's where I'm at.
And you have failed to give the listeners the last bit of an update that they are not able to see if they are just listening.
Oh, yeah. If you guys are just listening, I buzzed my head entirely and trimmed my beard down. It's not shaved. My beard's not shaved, but I'm bald now. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll see that. But it was just the top of my hair was starting to thin. You could start seeing through my scalp from my hair. It wasn't I'd have not really it wasn't consistently seen through it. It was kind of clumps. my hair's curly, so like it'll curl with like a bunch of strands. So a bunch of strands will curl, and then next to it, another bunch of strands will curl. So then you'd see through to my scalp, and it was just getting worse and worse. And my wife noticed it too. She's like, "Yeah, I've noticed your hair is thinning," and my hair was getting long, and it was starting to. I mean, it's still receding. It's always gonna be receding, but it was just at the point where I was like, you know what? I was like, I'm just gonna go ahead and buzz it. I don't want to deal with it anymore. It's the summer now, essentially down here, so I'm just gonna buzz it and call it a day. So I buzzed it. My wife helped me out with it, and here we are now. And I don't mind being bald. I tested it last year to see how I'd look bald because I knew I was going to end up being bald anyways one day genetically. So I tested it out to see if I had the head for it because you have to have a like not weirdly shaped head to be bald. And I think I'm all right bald. I don't mind myself bald. There are some people with some weirdly shaped heads that look weird bald.
Yeah, and I know all the fellas give you trouble for it, but it is a good look, so you'll be fine with it.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I don't mind people teasing me about it. I really don't care. I find it funny, like that meme George
Yeah,
made of
I was about to
SpongeBob.
say.
Yeah, so a buddy of ours made a meme where it was SpongeBob, and it was from the movie where the king or the princess, whatever, took the crown off the king, and he was bald, and the fish down below, his like eyes were burning from the brightness of the baldness, and he's like, my eyes. So they put my face over the king's face and like remove the crown from my head, and it was like my eyes because I'm bald now. So it was funny, but yeah, I really don't care. I really don't mind. I mean, I know it's not like I really like most people say I look better bald anyways from what I've seen, and I think that like when you guys tease me about it, I know you guys aren't really actually being serious.
Yeah.
Like you guys aren't be like, dude, that looks terrible. Why would you ever do that? You guys are like freaking Mr. Clean over here going to the gym, deadlifting like crazy. Like that's what would happen. You know, it's not quite the same.
Yeah, no, just giving some lighthearted fun.
Yep, that's all. Um, but yeah, so we were talking about ingredients earlier. I did want to talk about my current plan. That's why we kind of transitioned back to that. But the main focus of what we wanted to talk about today was nutrition label transparency. Um, because someone I know that I follow on Instagram and lives around here, he posted about how like especially in prep, but you need to be sure that what you're getting from the store nutrition label wise is actually accurate to what's being reported. So what he used as an example was pineapple, frozen pineapple chunks, and it was reported that on the nutrition label, I think it was, let me look it up to be sure. um, Let me see if I can find the nutrition label of the exact item. So it was frozen pineapple from, I think it was Food Lion. Um, so let's see here. So one cup was reported at 10 grams of total carbs of frozen pineapple, which is 140 grams. Um, but if you put in, so this is one cup chunks. Let's see. That's 245. So if saying one cup is 140 grams, we'll say like 0.6 cups or something like that is like, okay, so let's say half a cup. So according to nutritionix.com, it's saying frozen pineapple, instead of being 10 grams of carbs, it's actually 27 grams of carbs for just about the same weight, actually a little bit less weight than what's being reported. So transparently, it's not even close. So like the full container, it's saying, let me see if I can put in 2.5 cups. Okay, so it's 2.5 cups is how much is in the full bag. And it's saying 150 calories, 25 grams of total carbs is what's in this pineapple. And the only ingredient is pineapple chunks. That's the only ingredient. But online, what it's reporting is it's 135 grams of carbs, 527 and a half calories versus 150 calories for 2.5 cups. Granted, the weight is, let me see. So it's 280, there's 60, so 340 grams. This is saying 612 grams of frozen pineapple. So even if we did like, let's see what this is saying. So if we did like 1.5 cups, because that's 370 grams, it's still saying 80 grams of carbs versus the 25 that the label is reporting. So, which is fucking mind blowing to me that they can even like get away with this, because like if this is true, like let's say like they might be calculating in, oh, like logistics, you're gonna lose some nutrition, whatever, and it's been frozen so for X amount of times, you're gonna lose some nutrition there. Even if they calculate that in, there's no fucking way in hell it goes from 81 grams to 25 grams by the time you actually buy it and go to eat it. Um, it's ridiculous. That was just one example. So like, even though your um, like a nutrition label might say something, doesn't necessarily mean that that's exactly what's in there. And a lot of the time, these online databases are like a good average of all these different kinds of like studies run and stuff. And you got to consider too that when they say this website saying frozen pineapple, and then others are very similar as far as nutrition label goes, or nutrition amount. We see 100 grams for here. It's saying 13 grams. So like, yeah, so even then, it's saying 100 grams on this website is 13 grams versus the bag was 340 at 25. So, like, if you multiply this by 3.5 almost, you're at what? Like almost 50 grams of carbs, give or take. So, you're like really stacking on the carbs without realizing it. So, these websites, I mean, you can take into account that they might be talking about like cutting pineapple and then freezing it versus like all the processed pineapple that's in that bag. But this is just an example, because if this in this situation, if they're going to be like, oh, this is completely wrong, like this is like, even though this says 25 grams for the bag and it's just one ingredient, like what are you going to get when you have a million ingredients in there? Like how far off is it going to be when you start adding in shit? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the problem we're facing.
And there's also been, plenty of examples of manufacturers lying or just straight up not doing what they're supposed to nutrition label wise. So the best rule of thumb that we advise on like a this is like the most basic level if you don't even read nutrition labels is just keep it very simple foods. Like the ideal you want to be avoiding foods in general that have an enormous ingredient list, because there's just too much opportunity for failure there in terms of like what you're looking for in
Mm-hmm.
your caloric intake or your macro intake. So just keeping it simple. Like, I mean, it's the old adage for gym bros, but chicken and rice, like just keeping it super consistent and super simple is just the easiest way of handling it.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And the argument that he was having when he posted it to Instagram was that this is why you shouldn't be basing it off of like the nutrition label itself. You should be properly weighing out your food and keeping your food as simple as possible. Um, I mean, like a lot of the time when you're getting like, so it's saying actually on average from different links, it's saying nutrition labels on average can be up to 20% inaccurate according to FDA guidelines. So, like a serving of Greek yogurt labeled to contain 100 calories could weigh in at 80 to 100 calories instead. So, this is why you need to like a lot of, depending on your coach, they might like if you have a coach, if you have a nutritionist or something, they might base it off the nutrition label, or they might base it off of like actually reported amounts according to different reputable sources. So that's why consistency is like ideal, because like it wasn't necessarily, he wasn't necessarily arguing that like you shouldn't have food line pineapple. That's not what he was saying. He was saying that what you should be doing is you should be consistent with it and making sure that if you are having something that could be, in this case, frozen pineapple, make sure that you just keep having the same thing and basing it off of that food. So like, don't be like, oh, I'm going to have the Food Lion brand and then I'm going to buy the Walmart brand and I'm going to buy fresh pineapple and then go back and forth. It's like, you're not going to be that consistent because each one's a little bit different. So consistency is key, and like that's kind of where that kind of stems from. Um, and like that's also why we mentioned like the complexity of foods is going to play a big role, and that's why the seasonings I bought are very very simple seasonings for the most part. Like the chipotle seasoning I bought, I think the main ingredient is paprika, and then it's like chipotle pepper flakes, like or like whatever. It's like ground chipotle peppers. The other one is like salt, and then I think a little bit of paprika, and then something else in the other seasoning. It's like for the most part they're very simple, but then you can get like these like seasoning packs, or like, there's different seasonings that have like 3 million fucking ingredients in them.
Hmm.
And it's like, what the hell am I even eating? And it adds up
Yep.
so fast. Um, so like, that's why.
Honestly,
Mhm.
the recommendation I give in terms of seasoning, and I know it sucks, but just make your own seasoning, because a lot of what you're paying for when you buy like these blended together seasonings is just the work you don't want to do.
Yeah.
Like, if I have a little printout sheet that I keep in my kitchen, and to get like a chili seasoning, it's not as complex as people think, and they'll go for like the efficiency of just going and buying it as the pre-blended seasoning. But to just do it yourself takes like 5 minutes and a measuring cup. Like, that's all
Yeah.
it takes.
And
So I
something,
recommend just making your own.
yeah, something to consider too in that aspect too is that you're going to get a lot of time the better bang for your buck if you do make your own seasoning,
Yep,
because
you can buy it in
like,
bulk.
yeah, you can buy it in bulk. And on top of that, these companies, they're using the same ingredients that you are, and then they charge a premium for blending it and labeling it, putting it in its own bottle.
It's the
So it's like,
name. Yeah.
yeah, so it's like you're paying for this company to essentially blend a seasoning that you could really just make at home. And like most of these seasonings, you can buy the same ingredients in the same fucking aisle as these seasonings. And granted, you're not going to know the exact blend that they're using proportionately, but like you can get pretty close. So I mean, that's why before I was doing um, plain chicken and then putting on Kinder's barbecue blend, because it was like salt was like the main ingredient, and then there was like a couple other like paprika. Paprika is most of the seasonings that I eat. I love paprika. It just makes it gives it that barbecue flavor to me. And then a couple other things. It really wasn't that complex. I mean, I just bought Pride Foods cream of rice, coconut cream pie, and like the ingredient list is organic granulated white rice, organic cane sugar. So there's added sugars in it, but that's on purpose, because like I'm buying it on purpose because it's fast digesting carbs for my workout.
Yep.
Natural flavor, pink Himalayan sea salt, and then monk fruit extract. Most of the sweetener, I would argue, is probably coming from the monk fruit. The sugar isn't adding too much, probably just like more of like a consistency kind of thing. So I mean, even though this is like flavored in a good way, it's still not a shit ton of ingredients. Granted, it says natural flavor, but that's probably just like maybe even just regular ass coconut. Like, it's natural flavoring. It's not artificial. You know what I mean? So, um, like, you can buy. There's so many foods. There's just so many damn ingredients in them, and like that's also part of the problem with like for I don't know, like honey buns or something. It's they have so many ingredients in them. There's so much going on at once. Not to mention everything that's in there that's bad. You know what I mean? So you gotta be careful with what you're buying, and you gotta understand what's even truly in there. And then also understand it proportionally too. So like, for instance, my plan calls for 56 grams of cream of rice or grits, and in this case, one scoop is 47.3 grams. And Pride Foods focuses on specific, which is this brand that actually focus a lot on bodybuilders. That's kind of what it's built for. Um, so they're very specific with the scoop. It's 47.3 grams. And so if I do one scoop, that equates to just about the same carb intake that I was taking with grits. So like, just because like grits and cream of rice. So just because it's a different form of cream of rice doesn't mean I need to do 56 for this cream of rice as well. As long as it's the same rough caloric intake based off the nutrition label that they give. In this case, it's pretty simple, and they're known for focusing on health conscious people. Then I'm going to kind of trust a little bit and go based off this and just do one scoop versus 56 grams. Because if I do more, then I'm going to end up having more carbs. So it's this weird world we live in, especially in America here. If you're in the UK, which I know we have a lot of UK listeners, we're talking in terms of our laws and our
Yeah.
FDA regulations and all of that. Over there in Europe, you guys have a lot more regulations than we do, and I know that if you guys come over here, the taste in food is completely different. Everything's completely different because we have so many fucking like bullshit ingredients and shit that like the FDA doesn't regulate, where in the UK, I don't know exactly who it is that governs that over there. If it's like a UK, like if it's a EU entire organization, or if it's a UK specific or whatever. But I know there's a lot more shit that's banned over there, like high fructose corn syrup you can't get. I'm pretty sure in Europe. They don't allow
Well,
it.
I was about to say, and high fructose corn syrup is in this, but when we were talking about like foods that are complex for absolutely no reason, I immediately I know why I was thinking of. You ever see Zombieland, the movie,
Yes, of course.
where he's just chasing the Twinkie the whole time, and
Yeah.
Twinkies have been over time, called the apocalypse food because they never go bad. Um, and so then I've just pulled up the ingredients list on a Twinkie,
Let me look
and
that up.
it's a paragraph, man. There's so much, and then the very last three or four is like wheat, egg, milk, and soy, and that's the last one. Everything above it, and for anyone who doesn't know how to read an ingredient list, whatever you read first on the ingredient list is what's most prevalent in there. So it's kind of like whatever you read first is the most in there, and as it goes down, it gets less and less and less.
Yeah,
And
proportionately. Yeah.
yeah,
So there's more
proportionately.
sugar in Twinkies than there is water. And there's more water than
Exactly.
enriched flour, so on and so
Exactly.
forth. So even though sugar might be like 5% of it, but it's the most proportionately than the rest of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But just looking at this ingredient list, it's an enormous package of just stuff blended together. And that like the whole point that it stays good forever, like that there's a reason why you shouldn't eat foods that stay good forever. Food is not supposed to last forever.
Yeah.
I mean, I know
Um,
there's like a 20-year shelf life. It's not forever, but it's still a very, very long time.
yeah, that's not supposed to happen. It's all the preservatives in there that make it last
Yeah.
so long. That's what I'm talking about. Like that's what I was mentioning, like the honey buns earlier, like the Hostess shit and whatnot, like or like Little Debbie, like they have so many ingredients in them, and that's part of the reason why it's so unhealthy is because you're like digesting so many different things all at once. Um, it's just it's too much on your system. We're not supposed to eat that way. Um, but like the the other thing to not buy into too, I think is bullshit. I mean, I don't know how the UK is or any other country for that matter. Organic is such a fucking marketing term. It doesn't mean shit. Like
Hmm.
organic nowadays really does not mean anything. When it first became a thing, it did mean something. It meant there was like no pesticides and it was naturally grown and there's not like all these really added shit to it. But like something being organic is really not worth the extra money because it's so incredibly easy to get organic foods. It's like passing a blood test. It's like you can prep for a blood test and then all of a sudden after your blood test start smoking weed or whatever it is after, like like a drug test, for instance. Like it's you can pass the test for organic because like they come to your farm and check to see if it's organic to allow you to put organic on your labeling, and then when they're gone you can go right back to what you were doing
Yep.
before.
Yep.
It's bullshit. It doesn't really mean much. I mean, depending on the source, it can, but it's so incredibly easy to get or to make it organic. And really, organic is just a marketing term. Just because something's organic doesn't mean it's good for you. So that's another term to keep an eye out for. And like, there's this whole hype. I remember back in like the early 2000s where everybody was trying to get everything that was organic, and it's like, dude, it just doesn't work that way. It's like just because you're buying organic fucking Marciano cherries or whatever doesn't mean that you should be eating them. They're full of sugar. Like it's like,
Yeah.
um, so you got to be careful of that too. I mean, I don't know how other countries work necessarily, but here it's a problem. And nutrition labels are just so fucking whack. I mean, they're easy to read, but like,
Reading it's one thing, believing it and like actually staying true to it is another thing, because like I mentioned earlier, the different like lawsuits of companies that either advertised incorrectly or printed incorrectly is a huge hit thing. So like I'm looking at in 2013, the Naked brand, where they do all these like different fruit drinks and whatnot.
oh
But
yeah, yeah, yep.
they say here, it says that they were I mean, I haven't seen one of these in a while, or I mean, I've never actually bought one, but they were printing all natural fruit, 100% fruit, non-GMO, and in reality they weren't even using real fruit. They were using like genetically altered things,
Hmm.
and that they weren't at all printing what they were, or they weren't producing what they were printing. So
Hmm.
that's why like reading a nutrition label or reading just like a label in general is one thing, but then having it actually be true is a whole other thing. And obviously, not everyone has access to a lab. Like, for example, I do, like, hypothetically, if I wanted to get a food tested, I have access to a lab like that in this area. But other people, like if you live like New Hampshire in the woods, something like that, you don't
Mhm.
necessarily have access to a lab you can just go and send some food to.
Yeah, it doesn't. That's incredibly expensive to see what's actually truly in something. Um, and looking back, so to add to what I was saying a minute ago about the nutrition labels, so like looking at UK nutrition labels on the front, supposedly on the front pack nutrition labels are used. So on the front of items, they have to give you certain information. So like, and they're color coded too. In the US, they're not. The only thing that's really provided on the front is like the calorie content for one serving. And on top of that is like sometimes maybe sugar if that's like a marketing thing. But here it says you have to label these fats, saturates, sugars, and salts, and then the actual energy, which is the calorie content and the gigajoules that the actual calories will equate to. And if it's green, that means it's low. If it's amber, which is like an orangey yellow, it means it's medium. And if it's red, it means it's high. So, like for instance, this is a burger. It's medium in fat, medium in salt, but it's high in saturates, so it's red.
Yeah.
So it's like it's clearly you can see clearly like what's bad about it, what's good about it. This is from NHS.UK, which might be like the governing body for health. Um, so like that's also different in the UK too. Let me see, British Nutrition Foundation looking at labels. Yeah, their nutrition labels are very different than the way ours works. Because it'll be like it'll say fat, and then it'll say of which saturates, and then it'll go by grams, and it's like incredibly accurate. Like it's like 0.3 grams of the fats is saturates. So overall, it's 1.5 grams of fats in this food. I don't know what this food is. Um, but of that 1.5 grams, zero point 0.3 of them is saturates for 100 grams. But then each slice, which is probably bread, is probably bread. Um, each slice, which is 44 grams, it's saying it's zero point 0.7 grams of fat and zero point 0.1 grams of saturates. There's no way in hell we'd ever be that accurate because
And that's another thing. Like when it gets to that small proportionately, they're just not even printing it at that point.
yeah, so like that's another problem with our nutrition labels is that they can technically round shit if it okay, so for instance, like the seasonings. That's what I was saying. You got to be careful because if of a portion size is technically under 5 calories, they don't actually have to put that it's 5 calories. They can put 0 calories because it's technically under five, so they can round down to zero. But if it's five or higher, they have to label five, 10, or whatever. If it's a good company, they'll actually label the exact calorie content. Just like Pride Foods, I think it's 160, but like their scoop is 47.3. So I think they're doing that so that they can keep an easy 160. But like with the with the portion size, they can mark the portion size in a way so that it doesn't look like you're taking anything in. Like the I can't believe it's not butter spray
Hmm.
shit. It says like one spray is like 0 calories, but who the fuck is putting one spray on their food? You can't even
Exactly.
taste it. Like they say, oh, it's one spray is a portion, but like that probably keeps it under 5 calories. If you're doing 15, 20 sprays, you're probably adding a bunch of calories to whatever you're eating.
Yep.
And that's how the seasonings work. That's why you got to really read the nutrition label and what ingredients are in there because quarter teaspoon is fucking nothing. That's so little amount of seasoning. You're not going to put that much seasoning on whatever you're eating. You're going to put a lot more to actually taste it. So to say, oh, it's quarter of a teaspoon is 0 calories, but our second ingredient is sugar, it's like this is bullshit. You know what I mean? And I've seen ones where it's a quarter teaspoon and it's 5 calories. I'm like, damn. Like you put that seasoning on something, you're really racking up the fucking calories, dude. Like it's insane.
That's
Um,
why you actually have a better understanding of food if you buy a single serving like item. Like for example, if you're comparing, and I don't have them in front of me, but like if you're comparing like a box of mac and cheese versus a ready to go single serve mac and cheese, that single serve one is going to have the more accurate label because that you're eating that amount right there. Whereas with
mhm.
the box, they can report that smaller amount. Um,
Yeah.
and that's where, like, when the FDA started really pushing for the words nutrition label, in the 90s, early 2000s, people figured out how to skirt the law. That's just how it is, and
Mhm.
they you see it in a lot of these candies, sugar things. You just That's why you have to be so careful. Like, I make it a point not to eat anything that I think has added sugars, whether it's printed or not. If I look at it and I think that it's going to have added sugars, I just stay away from it.
Yeah.
So an example was, like, a friend of mine at work. So we're teaching, and during one of our prep times, offered me a Jolly Rancher, and I said no, and they were like, "What do you mean?" And I was like, "It has added sugars," and she was like, "Oh well, it says it only has 3 grams right here," and I was like, "Yeah, I get that, but either it's going to start with 3 grams and then build up to something more, or that's not being properly um, printed. So I'm just not going to do it because there's no real benefit for me."
Yeah, you gotta be careful, and it sucks that, like, I've also said a lot of the time too, like you said with the this is actually, I'm looking at this label. Calorie labels are often wildly inaccurate, and they're looking at a single serving, like, mac and cheese thing or something. Um, and it's like, the what sucks is that they really don't push for shit like this. Like, the FDA is such a joke. So for those that aren't in the US, the FDA is the Food and Drug Administration. It's the governing body behind how food is, marketed for nutrition, and, like, they are the ones who run the studies on what's proper nutrition for the average person. They're the ones who came up with 2,000 calories for women, 2,500 calories for men, stuff like that, right? So, but what's ridiculous is that the FDA, like, really, really, really cherry picks the shit that they want to focus on. And I think it also kind of comes from, like, funding and lobbyists and stuff like that.
Politics and
Because,
stuff like that.
yeah, exactly. It's basically a political organization. Because it's like, for instance, right? Like, DMAA, which we've talked about, is an ingredient within what older pre-workouts. You can still get it today, but it was pretty prevalent in a lot of, like, nootropic pre-workouts, which nootropic is focus. DMAA, somebody died from because they took too much, right? They took too much. They had a heart issue. They had a heart attack or something. I don't know the exact story, but they died from it. I'm pretty sure it was one death that made the FDA blacklist it, and you can no longer produce it as an ingredient for pre-workouts. Dude, you're going to get upset over one guy who took way too much with a pre-existing heart condition, but you're not going to ban, like, cigarettes who kill people every day. Like, it makes no sense. Like, really though, like, the FDA really doesn't truly care about health. Otherwise, they would attack it very differently, and we would have
Yep.
very different ingredients in our foods. And that's why you go to any country outside the US. Actually, I think high fructose corn syrup is elsewhere. But if you go to any country outside the US, like, they almost always use cane sugar for their sugar. And, like, most countries don't use high fructose corn syrup because it's so bad for you. And there's just actual health conscious organizations that truly want people to be healthy. And in the US, it's just not the reality. Um, it's not good. But the FDA allows that 20% difference. So it's not like you can't. They're not holding people accountable for not being accurate. They're saying you can be 20% inaccurate. So of course they're going to be lower 20% than higher, so that people buy their food and they can market it as low calorie or whatever.
And for anyone who thinks just hearing us say 20% is a small value, 20% is a huge value when you start, going with upper end, or not upper end, but foods that have already higher printed values of things. So, like, for example, a can of Coke. I want to say it's like 100 something grams of sugar that they print in a can of Coke. What does it say? Uh, I
This
know
is
it's
U.S. Coke.
yeah, but I know it's absurdly high. Oh well, okay, not as high as I thought, but still, 39 grams of sugar,
That's a
and
lot.
which is a ton, and we're talking
Yeah,
about a little, 12-ounce can, or
yeah.
yeah, what is 12
It's
ounce.
12 ounces. Yep.
So the 20% ratio on that. So if we say 39 times, you have a potential for almost, it's 8 grams rounded up of potential variance that you have on that.
Yeah.
And that's on a little can. That's a little can. Now, if you take, and I know because I'm in, especially from the gaming community, let's take that 2 liter bottle.
Oh gosh.
All right, where is it? Here we go. Okay, well, it's per serving size, so it's gonna be, they're gonna print the exact same thing. But if we can get the total amount on there, let's
Mm-hmm.
see. So okay, so here's the flavored one, which is cherry, which I know a lot of people drink, flavored stuff as well. So we got 42 grams, and then 6 servings per 2 liter. There's, oh my god, I hate this number. And then times the 0.2, you have a potential for 50 grams of sugar that's unaccounted for in a 2
Yeah.
liter.
Which people blow
Absurd.
through 2 liters pretty quick. When I was
Yeah,
a kid, in
yeah,
between when I was a kid in high school and I was drinking a lot of Coke, I blew through 2 liter in a few days
yeah,
because I loved it.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I could do that in a day. I remember doing it in a day.
Yeah. You can blow through pretty quick.
And we're looking at, and 20%, someone, a listener could be like, oh, 20%, that's nothing. There's still, almost 3/4 left. But then it's like, well, you know that 50 grams that you just missed out on, or not missed out, but potentially intaked without even realizing it, that adds up super quick. And,
Mhm.
that's just on the sugar side of things. Like Paul was talking about the carbs earlier, especially when you're in, like Paul was talking about in a prep when everything has to be dialed in. You're not dialed in if you're getting that level of variance for it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why you ideally want to stick to single ingredient foods as much as you can. And weigh it out properly. Like that's why I like my coach mostly does like grams, but sometimes he'll say like 4.5 cups of rice or 4.5 ounces. But like ideally, especially if you're weighing your food, you want to go as minute of a weight measurement as you can to be as consistent as possible. That's why you go by like ideally grams. Grams is way less weight than an ounce. An ounce is a lot more weight than grams are. It's 1,000 grams per kilo, and 1 kilo is 2.2 pounds roughly. So we're talking like a big discrepancy here. So like my scale can do grams, but it goes by 0.1 ounce increments. So I can do 0.4, 0.5, 0.6. But if I do grams, it's a lot more accurate. So like a lot of the time I try to do grams. And then like for another thing to consider too is like cups versus weighing something out. So like my egg whites in the morning, which I had before recording today, is technically 1.5 cups of egg whites, but 1.5 cups measures out to 300 milliliters, almost to the dot. So I do 300 milliliters versus a cup and a half because like even measuring cups aren't going to be 100% accurate. And you got to calculate the meniscus and shit. And it's like, dude, this is ridiculous. So like, that's why you got to weigh it ideally. And like my weight scale is a fucking champ. I use it so much and it is so beat the shit.
I think maybe like when we went down for the wedding or something, we were talking in person. You were like, I'm surprised it still is alive. I use it so
Yeah,
much.
it's so scratched up. Like it's got a metal top to it and the metal is like losing its color. Like it's crazy. I've used it so much. I'm so particular on my food scale because I use it 10, 15 times a day. So I got to make sure it's a good food scale and it's backlit numbers. That's so huge. And then also my other problem is I got to make sure that the actual surface area of the scale is big because you can get a small scale by accident. And now it's a bitch to weigh everything because it's all hanging off the fucking scale and whatnot.
Yep.
So like that's a pain. But yeah, you got to be careful of inaccurate scales and like even fucking weight scales. I don't know if you've ever experienced this. Weight scales almost like lose their accuracy over time. Like for instance, my weight scale right now, every single time I weigh myself, it's saying 202.7. I'm like, there's no fucking way I'm the same weight today as I am yesterday. And the
What
exact same.
what kind of scale is it?
It's
Is it one
well,
that just purely measures based off of you standing on like a pad, or is it one that, like, I have an electronic one that shoots signals through me and measures me based on that instead of the true weight style one?
yeah, so that I have two. So I have one that has the metal bits to it where it like measures your body composition.
Yeah.
How accurate it is, I doubt it's even remotely accurate, but
Yeah, but
there's
I'm
that
saying
one.
in
But
terms of the
both of them,
weight. Yeah.
Yeah, in both of them, it's a glass, and they're on. You put it on a flat surface, and you stand on it. It's a digital scale. I probably should get an analog scale. That's probably a better idea. But I had that one because it measured your body composition. It's really not that accurate, but I just got it just to try it. And then that only measures in 0.2 pounds increments. So it's only like 199, 199.2, 199.4. I bought the one I have now because that scale kept saying the same thing over and over again, no matter what I did. I could put on whole clothes, my phone, and my headphones, and it would say the same scale as I was if I was butt naked. Like it'd say the same weight. I'm like, what the fuck? There's no way. There's no
Yeah.
way. And then my scale is doing that now. I fucking put it one way on my floor, says 202.7. I put it the other way, 201.9. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? I'm like, why does this like? It's not like my floor is uneven or anything. It's fucking. We have I don't know if it's even real wood. It's like a wood paneled floor. I'm not even sure if it's real wood. It might be fucking laminate. So I know it's flat, but like if I put it horizontal to the wood laminate, it says 202.7. But if I put it vertical, it says 201.9. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And this one I got because it records in 0.1 pound increments. So I'm like,
Yeah.
which one is true? Like, I don't fucking understand. So maybe I should just get an analog one or something that doesn't require a battery or some shit. Maybe the batteries make it less accurate. I don't know. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's also a bitch too. Like you got to keep an eye out for different like food scales and stuff. Because some of them are more accurate than others. And that's why like ideally you want to get as accurate as possible with your food scale. That's why like anybody who knows anything about illegal substances knows that anybody who sells weed or sells drugs or anything like that, they use one of those like super accurate like 0.001 gram scales, so that they
Yep.
make sure that they're selling at exactly the weight that they need to be selling at. Like those are extremely expensive. So the more accurate you get, the more expensive it's going to be. It's like a triple beam balance scale are extremely expensive because they're very accurate. So
I'll say though, from the bodybuilding side, obviously you need to be locked in and dialed in with every single thing. But from a lifestyle perspective, I'd say that just getting, your Walmart brand scale is doing enough work in the sense of what you need it to be, because, not everybody is trying to get stage ready
yes,
and trying to dial in. So, because I know that, some of our listeners aren't in the bodybuilding world, which is
yeah.
totally fine. And even, you can get like I think Walmart sells like a $7 one that works just fine. You just have to change the batteries like once a year, and as that'll get the job done, because you're really just looking for your overall. So like if you're taking in like 7 ounces of chicken, it'll get you roughly 7 ounces of chicken. So
Mhm.
I think that as long depending on what your goal is, you're able to get away with certain things. Like Paul obviously needs the one that's going to give him the exactly what he needs,
Yep.
whereas myself, even now, I don't necessarily need the super dialed in one, because I'm not like, I'm still obviously progressing in a heightened sense in the gym, but I'm not doing it to get stage ready with a coach, so I don't need to
Mhm.
be as locked in as Paul is.
I think if you're just going to be doing lifestyle stuff, I think the biggest thing is just at least measuring it will be a big step. Measuring it and keeping the same measurements for everything you take in, because, like for instance, like cereal, I think it's like 1 cup is 1 serving. So like at least measure the cup. You know what I mean? Like don't just go eyeballing it in a bowl. And then if you get a food scale, I think my biggest recommendation is have a big surface area so that you can put different like porcelain or whatever on there, and then also just ideally have the numbers backlit, because I've bought a scale before that the numbers aren't backlit and it's such a bitch to see them. So just get
Nothing's
backlit
worse.
digital scales.
Nothing's worse than the big plate, and you're like trying to peer into the little
Oh, I
like
hate that.
slit of trying to see what you have
Yeah,
weighed.
that happens. That's what happens every day when I have my steak and my potatoes every day, and I have to put a big plate on there, and like I have to like put it just right so I can see the numbers, but then also like add food and make sure that it's like
Yep.
accurate. So and then another thing to consider too, which we haven't even touched on yet, is micronutrients too.
Mm.
Obviously like supplementation is going to kind of make up for this a bit, but ideally you don't want to take supplements if you could avoid it. And micronutrients and understanding what micronutrients are in what foods is going to play a role as well. So something to consider too is like the difference between russet potatoes and sweet potatoes almost entirely is because of the micronutrients. I've asked my coach that. And I'm like, hey, I hate sweet potatoes. Why is it that we're taking sweet potatoes instead of like, russet potatoes or whatever? And he just said, it's just the micronutrients. He's like, it's just a lot more micronutrient dense. You're getting a lot more vitamins out of it. You're getting, better minerals as well. So that's the reason why we're having sweet potato instead. So that's something to consider too, is that like the different versions of different foods will have different micronutrients in them. And vegetables play a big role into that. That's why you got to have your vegetables. And if you're ever interested in bodybuilding really at all, I think one of my recommendations you should check out is I think it's Muscle and Fitness Magazine does videos where they follow a bodybuilder for a day and what they eat. It's like food for the day. I forget what it's called, but almost all of them have like no vegetables every day. Like it's so weird. They have zero vegetables. Some of them do, some of them don't. I mean, most of them don't. A couple of them do, but like most of them never have vegetables. And like that's a big thing you really need to be having is vegetables, some sort of green. I'm even dialed into the point where like I can only have certain greens. Like I asked my coach, I was like, hey, can I have peas? And he said no. I was like, bullshit. All right. I think it's because the calorie content is just really high in protein, and I don't need that extra protein. But it's like certain greens will do a lot more for you than other greens will too. So something to keep in mind is micronutrients, which is vitamins and minerals.
Yeah, and like Paul was saying too, you can also achieve that through supplements. Like, I mean, obviously, Paul and I are in a different world than just the regular, but you can supplement with a lot of like I think I take 6 different supplements every day, something like that, just to make sure my macros are locked in for the day, because that also plays a huge role in recovery. And I know we've talked about it in one of our previous episodes where we talked about macros and micros and specifically what they do for you. But it certainly is something to keep an eye out for. Something that I found when I was looking through the research articles too was when going out to eat too. And because you can get like nutrition labels for restaurant foods, like that's something that's you're able to go online and look up. Like if you went to, let's say, like I don't know, Uno's or something, and you get like a brick pizza from Uno's, you're able to get the nutrition label for that. And they were saying this is from the FDA too, and it's saying, and this is absolutely wild, but and I quote, some individual restaurant items contained up to 200% of the stated values.
That's insane.
Absurd. So obviously, the Coke thing is the numbers we used earlier, and I'm just going to use it for the sake of understanding just how wild that is. But if we ran off of that 39-gram sugar thing, and then, I mean, 200% like that, I don't even want to do the math, but that's a ridiculous amount of non-include, like what's not stated in the what's being reported. And granted, I don't know many people outside of myself that actually look up what they're eating when they're at a restaurant. So this is a pretty small percentage of people anyways that care about this, but there is an absolutely absurd amount of food, or not food, calories and macros that aren't being reported when you go to a restaurant. And then it even says here that free side dishes increased provided energy to an average of 254 or 245% of stated values for the entrees they accompanied. So if you get like, do you want the complimentary soup on the side? That's going to jack it up too. So It is just wild to think about that.
So I had to look this up. There's a video where this guy went around. I forget. I don't think it was the U.S. I think it was somewhere else. And he said there's Sonic, which is a fast food chain here in the U.S. They're known for like American food, basically, and they're known for like pulling up to like this like panel thing that you sit in your car, you press this button, you order, and then they bring it out to you.
Rollerblades.
Yeah, they used to be on rollerblades. So I had to look it up to see it exactly. And he said, what do you think the calorie content is in this peanut butter fudge large shake from Sonic?
I'm already
So
worried.
it's a peanut butter fudge. So we all know peanut butter is pretty calorie dense. There's a lot of fat. We already know that. Fudge is pretty calorie dense from sugar, and there's a large shake. And he said, "What do you think the calorie content is in this?" And people were actually guessing pretty high. There were like 1,000 calories, 1,200, 800, whatever. On supposedly based off of their nutrition label PDF, which you can get from the internet for free, in the peanut butter fudge large size for their shake, it's
So this is what's reported by them or not reported?
yes, this is what's reported by
Okay.
Sonic themselves. 1,940 calories in that one large shake.
Wild.
Um, 1,000 of that, which is a little more than half, 1,050 calories of that is from fat, just the fat, which is like the peanut butter mainly. So it's like like it's insane because you don't realize how much you're putting in your body, and like that's why whenever I go get like a refeed or something like that, my coach is just like always like stay away from fried foods because it's the food and then they fry it in oil,
Yep, the
so there's
grease.
tons of oils all within the food, and that's what makes it so bad for you is the oils, not necessarily the food itself. Like if you got like fried chips at a restaurant or something, the chips themselves aren't terrible. They're just sliced potatoes. It's the frying it that makes it bad, you know?
Yeah.
So like the nutrition content is going to be completely off because they're adding all these oils to potatoes. And like, that's why if you ever go out to dinner with like, oh, their 24-piece Asian sweet boneless wings is 2,100 calories. If you ever go out to dinner with like a bodybuilder or someone who's very, very, very health conscious, you oftentimes see them ask for something to not be cooked in oils or butter. Like if I were to
Yep.
get a steak, if like I got to have a burger on Sunday because it was my birthday. I got a bison burger. But what I asked my coach, I said, "Hey, can I go get a steak with vegetables, but just ask they don't cook it in oil and butter?" And they will. They'll do that, you know. So it's like they douse these meats in oils and butters to make it taste better and cook easier. I mean, if you've ever cooked steak, you know that it cooks amazing when you use butter with it and
Yep.
oils and stuff. So it cooks better. Um, Peanut butter and cookie dough, Dream Master Blast large, which is ice cream, is 2,100 calories. So it adds up a lot. So you got to be careful of that too. And you know, they don't really have like they'll say, oh, this is the calorie content on their nutrition label, but there's no way it's fucking accurate. They're eyeballing the oil they're putting on it, and you know, so like where the meat, the cut of meat is coming from is gonna vary the calorie content. I mean, like if you buy ribeye, some slices of ribeye, some cuts are gonna have less fat than others. So I mean, it's even just like the cut of meat that you're getting is going to have a variance in overall calorie content just based off the fat itself. Um, so you got to be careful of that too.
Yeah, I it actually like disturbs me whenever we do an episode like this because we start to, I mean, we both have a fairly good understanding of it, but then going through the numbers and actually
Yeah.
doing the math for the different proportions, it actually disturbs me because it the amount of people that don't actually do the work of just reading and understanding the nutrition label and then understanding that they're being, you know, a little bit deceived when it comes to that. That's why we have the obesity rates that we do here in the States. Like we lead the league. We we lead the league in terms of obesity. And
Technically, no. Australia technically has the worst,
yeah, well, they're
but
they're a bunch of, you know, wild animals over there. But it's just it's frustrating. Then when you bring in the gym side of things, you know, we obviously, even if you're just lifestyle side of things, you are probably at the point where you're monitoring yourself fairly closely for what you're intaking, and then one slip up can have you completely reset. Because the big thing that we preach is consistency, and if you're like, oh, I'm gonna go have like a Rice Krispie here because I feel good and I want to have something like a little cheat, and that one thing can just spiral you because your consistency is completely gone. It's no bueno. And
mhm.
I was looking deeper into this study here that I quoted earlier, and it's from the Boston area. They did 39 restaurants in the Boston area, so this is like a home for me. And
Mhm.
the caloric measures that were being given was just radically underneath what they were supposed to be. Um, there's the they posted a chart within the study that measured the energy. So for that's measuring calories, and restaurant foods consistently, and I mean consistently for let's see, there's about 30 studies. Oh wait, no, they said it 39 studies. And about half of them are above and substantially above. Whereas supermarket convenience meals, so that's like those prepackaged things you can buy at like Market Basket or whatever. Those things
Mhm.
are relatively closer to what they're actually, printing. Um, but the restaurant foods are just that much further off the scale. And so I mean, granted, we don't tell me if you do, but I don't go out to eat a ton as is. Like
Mhm.
I cook so much of my own food, and if I do go out, it's like I have a very specific place I go, and it never changes from that. Like I'm not going and trying new restaurants very often, and for me, that allows me to avoid a lot of this stuff. But when you get into this, deep into the world, you're not actually going out all this much, so it doesn't really affect us the way that it does.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I rarely go out, but because I'm so dialed in, if I have anything off plan, I feel like shit. A bite of
Yeah.
something will completely throw me off, and I feel like crap and just get bloated and whatnot. It's crazy. But I mean, I think the biggest thing with all this, ideally, I think going out should be a treat, or like eating out should be a treat. You shouldn't be doing it regularly. Um, and when it comes to cooking food at home, yes, there's going to be discrepancy, and I think that you need to understand that and ideally buy as simple as foods as possible. But also consider that the more consistent you are, the less the variance is going to matter. So if you're having the same thing every week, even though I have the same thing every week, but even though I was actually buying Food Line pineapple, frozen pineapple, because I only have pineapple once every now once every 5 days. I was having it once every 4 days. So buying fresh pineapple just logistically made no sense because by the time I go to have
Yeah.
maybe my third serving, it'd be gone. Like it'd be toast. So frozen makes sense for me. Same with my blueberries. I only have 3 ounces of blueberries a day and none on my rest days. So it makes sense to buy frozen. So even though it might not be 100% accurate and FDA allows 20% inaccuracy, which for where we started this conversation was that frozen pineapple, and it was like more than double the amount.
Yeah.
I don't know how accurate that would be because the FDA only allows a 20% discrepancy. So there could be more to it than just like that website, like I said, might be saying you take fresh pineapple and you freeze it, and then the water inside expands or whatever. So the grams actually go up, whatever the hell it is. Um, so like however it works, I'm not sure. So like there's obviously something being lost between cutting the pineapple, processing it, freezing it, whatever. There's going to be some stuff lost. A lot of the juice is probably lost as well. So how accurate the difference is between the label and the website, I'm not sure. But what matters is that whatever I'm having, I'm consistent with it. And even if it is off from what's the reality, at least I'm being consistent with the same thing over and over again.
Mm.
And that 20% discrepancy over a longer period of time goes down to almost nothing if you average it out. And that's, I think, the reason why they allow a 20% discrepancy. I think they should allow a lot less, no more than probably 10%. But they also are very lenient with how you calculate it. They have like this estimator for companies to use. So you'd be like, oh, it's 1 cup of flour, 1 pound of beef, and then 1 cup of whatever. Like you put it in, and you pay like $100 or whatever, and it comes out with the actual nutrition label. Then you put that on your packaging. So like it's a pretty lenient system. You can get it tested properly, but that costs a lot of money, and most companies won't do that. So
Can you imagine being that person at the FDA that tests for the 20% variance? Like how like we're getting, a little disgusted just talking about it, but imagine being that dude that goes, "Yep, well, this is within 20%. Sure, it's going to cause some kid to get diabetes in 3 years, but it's within 20%, so we're
yeah,
good."
it's technically legal. It's fine, I
Like,
guess. And then the thing is too, it's like if they are not even within 20%, all that's really going to happen is a slap on the wrist and a fine. That's
Yep.
really all that happens. It's not like anybody's going to get arrested. The company's not going to get shut down. It's like, oh,
And
here's a fine.
and
Fix it.
that's even if they're caught. I'm willing
Yeah.
to bet dimes on the dozen that there's multiple, if not hundreds of companies that are just getting away with stuff because, like we talked about how the FDA is very political as well, like just companies that have backdoor like agreements in place, and it's like, all right, we know we're not going to get tested for this, let's send in the cheap food. Like there has to be deals like that in place.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. Um, so yeah, it's just um, it's the discrepancy is way too big. But again, like I said, if there is a discrepancy, usually it's 20% less. But if you are being consistent with it, at least in the long term, it averages out to very little amount of error. Um, and especially if you base it off of what the supposed actual tests have been. So if you buy the food line and you say, okay, is this is what the actual tests have been, this is what it's saying, let me base it off of this rather than what's actually in this food line bag. Or what I probably should do, what I really should do is buy actual pineapple and then freeze it. That's what I should do. Cut it and then freeze it and then
No,
take out what I need.
what you should do is grow your own pineapple. Be a man.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, so
In the climate of South Carolina.
yeah, where pineapples grow in abundance here. We just have a lot of bamboo. That's what we got. So I think if you're just being consistent on something, whatever the accurate version of it is, that's all that's really going to matter. There are articles out there. While we are talking about this, I was browsing this article where this guy was saying, yeah, there's a 20% discrepancy, but he's like, this is my food intake over the past month. And he said, if you average out my caloric intake based off of what the actual reported numbers are between the company and what the real numbers are, his margin of error was like less than 1%. He's like, because some days what he ate was more inaccurate than other days, but some days were extremely accurate. So
Yeah.
at the end of the day, if you're having roughly the same food, your margin of error is going to be very low. So that's really what's going to matter the most. But again, you need to understand that the more complex your food that you're buying, the more chance that it's going to be even harder to predict what the actual nutrition truly is. And that's where like that estimate gets even harder to do because, like I said, the FDA, you go in, you put in what actually is in it, and then it comes out with an estimate. The more amount of ingredients in the food, the harder the estimate's going to be. And again, it's just an estimate. It's not 100% because, geographic regions of where something is grown, where something is raised is going to play a difference. Climate is going to play a difference, or it's going to play a role. Logistics is going to play a role. Whether or not you freeze it is going to play a role. Like there's so many different things that play a role in what you end up getting in return. So like fresh fruit from studies has actually found that there's less micronutrients in fresh fruit than there is in frozen fruit because it loses its nutritional value as it's transitioning from farm to table. Where with frozen food, it locks a lot of that nutrition in and is then shipped with that nutrition locked in and frozen, and then you eat it from there. So that's another thing to consider too, is that sometimes, like that's why I buy frozen vegetables and not fresh vegetables, because I want all the nutrition in there I could possibly get. Where I don't want my vegetables to go fucking bad after 2 days because they were just shipped out. I'll bring it here and then thaw them and then eat them. But that's not the case with all things. I don't want my chicken frozen at all. I want it fresh the whole time. But again, it comes down to understanding the differences between what you're buying and what you're really getting. And you got to be careful of marketing because that's going to play a role in what you buy.
Yeah, and that's why also like just keeping it, like Paul was saying, consistent. Like Paul and I eat the same thing basically every single day. And it's boring to some people. Like I've had some people ask me like, why don't you do you not enjoy eating food? And I was like, I enjoy eating food. It's just the goal at mind is it outweighs the wanting to go eat something like fancy or whatever. So the consistency, like with that study where the dude was saying there's the 20% variance, but I'm still locking in because of the consistency. That's what we need to do. More so what the point is out of this whole episode is like, if you can lock in consistency wise. And if it's not 7 days a week, maybe like 4 or 5 days out of the week, you're dialed in with like your primary meals and whatnot. And then maybe on the weekend is when you're starting to slip up a little bit. You can recover from like a Saturday of eating, shit or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in the bodybuilding world, it's like it's really frowned upon to cheat on weekends because you're kind of undoing a lot of the work that you did during the week. So it's hard to make progress when you're cheating on the weekends. But if you're just focusing on lifestyle goals, then cheating on the weekends is going to be fine. And this discrepancy really isn't going to matter as much, but you need to be consistent. And ideally, like it's not even necessarily, like I said earlier, it's not necessarily consistent in what you're eating. It's also where you're getting it. If like you eat one brand of thing, just try to stick to that one brand. I get Thomas English muffins every single time, not because they're better or worse than other English muffins. It's because
The
that's what I eat.
consistency. Yeah.
Yeah, that's just what I eat, and that's what I have every single time. Is Dave's Killer probably better? Yeah, chances are, but that's not what my body's used to. My body's used to English muffins, and like when
Mm-hmm.
it comes to bread, like I don't have regular slices of bread. I have Ezekiel bread because that's what my body's used to digesting at this point. Changing to Pride Foods cream of rice, I've had it in the past and I've responded well to it, so I know it's fine. But like if you're responding to regular cream of rice well, like from Ben's or whatever from the store, stick to that. I mean, I hate it. That's why I don't buy it. It's fucking disgusting. But like you want to stay as consistent as possible. And I think that's really just where a lot of our conversations really just go down to that. It's just staying consistent. And it holds true for fucking most things we end up talking about.
I think it was a couple months ago, maybe 1 or 2 months ago, I mentioned that I went and got Domino's for the first time, and like I know it's probably close to like half a year at that point, and my body straight up just rejected it. I was right on the bath, like I was in the bathroom the whole time, like right after eating it.
Yeah.
And if you dial in consistency wise with your regular intake, you're gonna notice things like that. So
Mm-hmm.
we talk about these inflated, nutrition labels and whatnot. And if you have a dialed in diet, you don't even need to check a nutrition label. You'll know, like your body will straight up let you know that you messed up and this thing is not what you think it is. Um, it's because, like Paul was saying, with how your body is used to digesting something over and over and over again, and then you change it up a little bit. If it's, within a little bit, like I'm sure with the bread you could probably get away with making that switch, but if you decided like one day to go from um for example, if you went from 93 or higher lean beef and then decided to for price purposes go get 80% lean beef, your body would probably just be like, well, you're not surviving this one, buddy, and to the
Yeah.
bathroom we go.
Yeah. That's why, like, on my meal plan, I have options. But when it comes to like steak, for instance, I'm only supposed to have sirloin or
Yeah.
flank or sirloin is what I'm allowed to have because you got to keep the fat levels relatively consistent. It's hard to find flank down here. I feel like I never find flank, so I just end up getting sirloin. And sirloin tastes pretty good. I love sirloin, but yeah, the fat content will play a big role, and um, like that's why like people argue like what's better tasting fat or whatever when it comes to like beef. Like I'm like, dude, trust me, when it comes to beef, you want like 80% lean. Like if you want it to taste good, if you want it to taste
Yep.
really good. But then if you have like 99% lean beef, it's like fucking terrible. Like it's just straight beef. Like there's
Yeah.
no fat. And it's a big difference that people don't realize when you get like if I go to my in-laws and we're making burgers, like we get 80%. I don't have them, but like we get 80% because I'm like, trust me, this is what's better. Like you don't want 73, that's way too fatty. And you don't want like 90, that's not fatty enough. Like the ideal spot's like 80. Um,
Yeah.
but then like how accurate is it 80%? Like who's fucking testing that? It's like how do you know it's actually 80% lean versus 20% fat versus not, you know what I mean? Um, and like this also kind of bleeds into this whole conversation bleeds into like supplementation as well. One of the biggest things that I've always preached about supplementation is that whatever supplements you get, ideally any good company who actually gives you efficacious doses which efficacious means actually like usable doses that are like bioavailable, That's a term we got to talk about in a second. Um,
Next episode. Tune in next week, y'all.
yeah, bioavailability the whole time. No, but when you're buying a supplement, it should be transparent. What do they have to hide? And if they're hiding behind a proprietary label where they don't tell you how much is actually in anything, it's like, oh, the whole scoop is 9 grams and this is what's in it, but we're not telling you how much of each ingredient. It's bullshit, where if it's transparent and they actually tell you exactly what's in it for each ingredient and how much, then they know that what they're providing is a good quality item. It's a good quality supplement that has efficacious doses. I haven't watched it. It's fucking so long. An hour and a half video for More Plates, More Dates, talking about their new energy drink for Gorilla Mind. And he talks about it for an hour and a half, which I don't know if I could listen to about one drink the entire time. But he did that because he wanted people to understand that even though, like, in a sense, he's an influencer, that doesn't necessarily mean that what he's providing is a good product. So he made a long video about it because he's like, this is a good product. Every single ingredient is efficacious. There's a reason for, the alpha GPC or whatever being binded to, it's 50% alpha GPC, but they increased it to this amount because of 50%. Like the bioavailability he goes into in each ingredient, and it ends up proving to be a good supplement or a good drink because it's actually efficaciously dosed. But then you get like shit companies like C4 or Cellucor is a brand that I really promote against. They have some good stuff that I respond to well, but they're not transparent at all. Their C4 pre-workout is so fucking proprietary. Like you have no idea what you're taking in. The only thing they really label is the caffeine because they have to legally. They have to tell you exactly how much caffeine is in there, but the rest of it is proprietary. It's like, what am I even really taking in? You have no idea. You just know the ingredients.
And that's been my beef with Celsius too. I mean, I know I've vented in the past about how I don't like Celsius, but the fact that companies can slap the proprietary blend label on there and then just be like, well, enjoy what you're drinking. You don't know what it is.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. That's why, like, when it comes to energy drinks specifically, I try to go the route of like just like straight caffeine and ideally natural flavoring if I can. But yeah, there's some that are out there that are fucked. And like that also kind of goes into like sports drinks too, like Gatorades and whatnot. And it's like people don't understand the use behind them, the electrolytes and how that operates within your body and the salt and everything. And what's funny is that Gatorades, there's 2.5 servings in one fucking bottle. It's like, dude, what? Well, I mean the bigger bottles, not like the regular size, like the fatter bottles. But it's like, who's having like perfectly one serving?
Yeah,
you can't judge that. So you got to be careful of that as well because there's a lot of sugar in it for a reason, but there's a lot of sugar and it's how electrolytes work and all of that people don't understand. And
I mean, I also use it for the fast digesting carbs intra workout.
The dextrose. Yeah, that's what they're designed for. That's what it was originally made for, was the Gators in Florida for their performance or their football games, So
but Gatorade. I want to drink Gatorade because it makes my tummy hurt.
it makes me feel better.
I'm sicky wicky and I need Gatorade.
I need ginger ale because it makes me better for some reason. For no reason at all.
Yeah.
Which ginger ale really doesn't even actually have ginger in it. It's just fucking artificial ginger.
Yeah. Everyone should drink just drink tea when you're sick. That's all you need.
I just drink water. And like coffee. I do my normal shit when I'm sick.
I boil water and I drink boiled water. That's it.
Yeah. I want to feel the pain of the boiled water, not the pain of my sickness. I don't want to feel stuffed. I want to feel pain. 3rd degree burns, please. So I focus on that.
Jesus.
But yeah, so it's just like, and then even fucking, I remember that they taught us it in, I think it was middle school or high school, but like, if you don't know how to read a nutrition label, that is so bad because you're just buying based off the packaging and what the food is. You know what I mean? It's like you have no idea what you're actually fucking taking in, which is such a bad thing to consider.
And
anybody who doesn't know how to read a nutrition label.
Yeah, and another thing too is that those nutrition labels are based off of a 2,000 calorie diet for gals, 2,500 calorie diet for gentlemen, and it's like when you're in I mean, I don't know about you, but my caloric intake is supposed to be north of 3,600, and
mine's a lot more than 25.
Yeah, and so while that doesn't necessarily apply to the grams of things included, if a lot of people just look at the percentages, because people will see the like especially the sugar percentage, and it'll say, oh well, this is 30% of your intake for sugar per day based on the 2500 diet. And if you are doing anything but the 2500 diet, that percentage does not apply to you.
Mhm.
And that's something that people also don't really realize, is that you can't just run off of those. And that's obviously with the 20% variance too. So if you, for example, you are in a calorie deficit and you're reading a nutrition label that is off of a 2500 calorie intake, which is every nutrition label, and you see and you read just the percentage, and it says this is 50% of your carb intake for the day, and you buy that, eat it, and you're supposed to be in a calorie deficit, so let's say 2200 or something like that, you're looking at like 70%. And then with the 20%, you're now looking at potentially your just entire carb intake for the day.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was going to say something else to add on to that too. Um, oh, that's what I was going to say was the 2500 and the 2000 like potential diet from the FDA is bullshit. They're saying that men's supposed to take in 335 grams of carbs a day. That's what they're saying. I'm
How
like,
much?
375 grams a day. I'm
Hmm.
like, most bodybuilders don't take in more than fucking 300. Like,
Yeah.
that's ridiculous. Let me see if I can find it. FDA's daily intake. Ba, 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 ba. Daily value versus percent daily value. I just want to know what the fuck the actual daily value is. Okay, daily value. Okay, so this is updated. So this is newer. Let's see. Okay, we don't micronutrients. You just take in as much as you can. So they actually have. So this I don't know when the original was. So it's saying the original daily value, which was. Let's see if I can find out when that was. It's saying so the region there's a daily value increase, changes for nutrients, increase, decrease, stay the same, or yeah. So this is just like this is before and after. I don't know when the before was or when the after was. I know we changed our nutrition labels in 2016 to change the look of them, but it's in the new daily values. We're actually supposed our new daily value every day is 50 grams of sugar. That's
Wild.
supposedly our new daily value. We should be having zero. That's what it was
Yeah.
before. The original daily value was
Well,
zero
is
added
that
sugars.
okay? Added sugars. That's what I was going to ask, if it was
Yes,
added or
added sugar.
natural.
You can have natural sugars, but
Yeah.
added sugars was zero. Now it's fucking 50. This is all changed. Let me see if I can
Jesus.
find the original.
Can you imagine a country not the US looking at that and saying, or just looking at and seeing that our average per 2500 calorie is supposed to be 50 grams of added sugar? That's absurd. They
Yeah.
would laugh at that.
So this is back in 2016. So this is what was updated in 2016 with the new label. So like for instance, there is 36 grams of carbs before, which was 55% of our daily intake. That same label now. So this is I guess chicken pot pie frozen dinner. 36 grams of total fat, which is one pie, and there's four of them in container. That's 55% of our daily value. Now it's 48%. So it's higher now. Like it's like the more we can take in is higher now than it was before. Let me zoom in here. Now it's saying sodium actually went down. It was 1060 for 44%. Now it's 46. And then it's saying sugars, so carbs, total carbs was 59 grams. So both labels say the exact same ingredients, but the percentages are different. 20% is 59 grams. Now it's 21%. So we're supposed to take in less total carbs, but it's saying we're supposed to take in more dietary fiber, which is good. But then it says added sugars is now a percentage, where before we're not even supposed to have added sugars at all. Yeah,
I
so it's
think
saying, mhm.
I was just going to say, I think a lot of it too is the under or the general perception of what people think weight loss like attributes to. So like we talked about how in the what was it, the 60s, the focus was on how to remove like fat from your diet, and
Yes,
now it's people focusing on either reducing carbs or reducing sugar, but these values change just based on what people are saying and thinking at the time. So I'm
yeah,
sure that 20 years from now, God, if we ever reach the point where someone tries to tell me that I need to lower my protein intake,
Oh
I will
gosh.
lose my mind then.
Yeah, so it actually went down in carbs. It's saying 300 grams for women before. Now it's 275 grams added or grams per day. So that went down at least. Protein stayed the same. 50 grams is what you're supposed to have every day of protein.
Yeah,
Are you shitting me?
I eat way
That's
more than that.
I have that much in one meal.
Yeah,
Like that's my pre-workout is 50 grams of fucking protein. Like, dude,
yeah,
that's not you're supposed to have the average person should have way more than 50 grams of protein. You should probably we should probably move like carbs now is at 275 grams. We should move that down to like 150 and then put another 125 from
into
the carbs
protein.
onto protein.
Yeah,
You know how much that would change for people in the US? Like if we had to make that the requirement for the daily intake,
yeah,
like not that really would change overnight, but like if people actually followed that, it would be a very, very big difference
yeah.
in how people live their lives.
Well, that too also assumes that people outside of the fitness world care about what they're eating in terms of nutrition labels and calories and all that, which I like to think optimistically, but I'm a realistic person at heart, and I know that the majority of people are not taking this level of care for their diet. So that also adds to it that we won't ever actually see, like, even if the recommended diet changes like we just suggested for the FDA, it's not like that will be even listened to by the majority of people.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. Um, so this is okay. So here's the actual food components. I think this is based off a 2,000 calorie diet for adults and children over 4 years old, so 4 years and older, pregnant women and lactating women, where any children from 1 to 3 should have 1,000 calories, and I think children under 1 should have even less than that. I think it's like probably like 600, 700 calories. But so 2,000 calorie diet, it's saying we're supposed to have 78 grams of fat, which is a lot. 20 grams of saturated fat. We really shouldn't have fucking any of that. 300 milligrams of cholesterol. That's fine, I guess. 275 grams of carbs, which is a shit ton. 2,300 milligrams, so 2.3 grams of sodium, which is a lot. 28 grams of fiber, which went up. I think it was 25 and now it's 28. The more fiber, the better. It's a net neutral. It's a net neutral carb, so it really only can really help. It doesn't react to your body the same way that like regular carbohydrates would. Like you talk to somebody who's on keto and they'll tell you that it's like dietary fibers. So like when you take in net carbs every day, like you take in 30 grams of net carbs for keto, for instance, you can have 500 grams of dietary fiber. Not that you would, but you could. It doesn't
Yeah,
necessarily count as an actual carb. Um, Protein is 50 grams, and then added sugars is 50 grams, which the fact that we're supposed to be able to have 50 grams of added sugars is ridiculous. So they said total carbs is 275, but added sugars is 50. So even though we went down in total carbs with the 2016 change, we went 50 grams up in sugar from
that
zero.
is purely FDA marketing with big companies. Like, there's
And
no way that there's I understand having a certain level of added sugar intake, like a very, very minute amount, but just a little bit. Like, I can understand like under 5 grams, something
and
like that.
natural too, like natural
Well,
sugars.
yeah, I mean, natural sugars are, I mean, those are in our diets regularly. Like, I eat an apple every morning. Like, for me,
Yeah.
that's a good way to kickstart my body's levels. But the fact that the recommended is 50, that there's this is supposed to be coming from the agency that protects us and keeps us from being obese, or keeps us from or sorry, helps us to maintain healthy lifestyles, and the recommended dosage from those people is 50 grams of added sugars. There has to be something in place with that. I mean, obviously I'm a bit of a conspiracy person, but there's just no way that the agency that's supposed to be helping us the way that they you know advertise, not even advertise, just publicized, is promoting that kind of lifestyle.
Yeah, I'm looking at it here. There's a whole fucking insane amount of information about how the FDA defines added sugars. Like it's paragraphs of shit. But basically, the long story short, added sugars is anything that's more than what's expected to be in the food itself. So it's anything added to the processing, packaged as such, and include sugars, free mono and disaccharides, sugars from syrups and honey, and sugars from concentrated fruit or vegetable juices that are in excess of what would be expected from the same volume of 100% fruit or vegetable juice of the same type. So if you got like bottled orange juice versus fresh squeezed orange juice, the added sugars would be the difference between those two,
Yeah.
is what they're saying is the added. And then I'm like, honey is naturally occurring. I think that's okay in moderation, but then like syrups shouldn't really be having it all. Syrup shouldn't be a thing. You're getting it from oak trees, which is not even actually syrup. It's fucking like what even comes from the oak trees? It's not actual maple syrup. It's like maple.
It's the
Is it just
runoff
maple?
tap. It's something. I
Yeah,
I couldn't tell you. I'm not that deep in that world.
yeah. It's like a maple sugary substance. I think from the maple trees, like a sugary water or something that they build the syrup off of. Um, so you shouldn't really be having syrups anyways. And most syrup that people buy is fake anyways. When you try real syrup, it's fucking amazing. But the fact that they say that we can have added sugars now is just absurd. Um, yeah, declaring the nutrition facts label declaration of added sugars for single ingredient foods and cranberry products. Why did they single out cranberries?
Those
That's so
pesky little
weird.
crayons.
Yeah, those cranberries are getting the. We're gonna label them as added sugars. They didn't pay
Intent
us money.
and yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Intentionally targeting groups that are not supporting their narrative.
Specifically cranberries. Craisins are the devil. Regular raisins are fine because Sunmaid paid us. But not but not what's that one in Massachusetts that's huge for cranberries? Sunblast or forget what it's called. It's a blue packaging.
I haven't eaten cranberries in a long time, so I don't know.
Yeah, they make cranberries and craisins and stuff. I forget what it's called. It's in Massachusetts. It's a bunch of juices they make too. But it's like they didn't pay us, but Sunmaid paid us. So raisins are fine, but not craisins. Those assholes didn't
Goobers.
pay us any money. Man.
We're
Okay, let's
we're gonna get flagged for a conspiracy on this whole episode.
they can suck it. If the FDA gets mad over people being upset about added sugars, they can suck it because
Let's try
it's
and get someone from the FDA on this show.
yeah, the actual rep, like an actual rep for the FDA. Why the hell
we're
is there added sugars in there? Give me an actual, genuine, good reason. Like, give me a good reason. Like, why are we allowed it? Like, I can understand it's part of people's daily food, but you should be allowed to have it as part of your daily intake.
just open up the conversation with "You've committed crimes against Skyrim or people. What say you in your defense?"
To the gallows. Um, yeah, there's this whole PDF here about syrups and like cranberry juices specifically because there's a bunch of added sugars, I guess, in cranberry juices or some shit. But it's
Yeah,
like that goes for every single juice. Cranberry products discussed in the guidance are those where the addition of sugars is intended to increase palatability, and for which the amount of total sugars per serving is at a level that does not exceed the amount of total sugars in a comparable product with no added sugars. I mean, I guess they're saying that like you have to add sugar to cranberries because cranberries taste like shit, but I'm like, no, they really don't. Like, you ever had a vodka cran? You ever had a Cape Cod, bro? Just put a
yeah.
cranberry in there. Good enough.
Boom.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's stupid. The FDA is a fucking joke. It's such a joke. I've been saying it for years, and it just gets worse and worse.
Oh, that's
And
what I mean. Like that jump from essentially 0 to 50. Like that's absurd.
yeah, there's no reason for that, and they've been a joke for the longest time, and they're just going to keep being a joke, and they're never going to change their ways. It's ridiculous.
That's like when we got the added to the U.S. government the Space Force to keep us safe
See,
from.
okay, here's my little opinion on that real fast. I understand why he wanted to create a space designated military branch
military. Yeah,
because each branch did have space like departments that would like send up satellites and shit for like their monitoring and whatnot. So he Trump's idea was like, let's have one branch that does all of that, who
Yeah.
operates entirely with space equipment and has that specialty, versus having like people spread out throughout each branch. So I can understand. It was just dumb. It was like Space Force. Like it sounds like a sitcom. Like it doesn't sound
Well,
like
I
an actual
highly
branch.
I highly recommend everybody go watch the Netflix series Space Force.
Isn't
They
that
take it's
Steve Carell?
Steve
Right?
Carell, and
Yeah.
they do a really good job parodying it.
Yeah. I got to check that out. I think it's the same people as The Office. I'm not a big fan of The Office though.
Uh, I mean, the cast isn't identical. Not, I mean, there's
I think it's
not
the same
actually.
producers or something.
Oh, okay.
It's something like that. It's not the same cast. It's just like same producers or something behind it. There's also the one with Seth MacFarlane too. I forget what that's called. Kind of
Yeah,
like a parody on Star Trek. Um, but yeah, no, it's just. I mean, it changed in 2016, so I don't know. It might have been. I don't know if there was a Trump administration that did that or whatever. I think he was towards the end of 2016 that he was in office, so I think it was the Obama administration. And Michelle
yeah,
did that whole like healthy eating for kids, where they just got rid of. Like there was no healthy eating in schools. Like there was no healthy foods. They just got rid of the bad, like the worst foods. It's like, dude, it's
yeah,
still not good. You didn't actually change anything. You just got rid of some shit that kids like.
yeah.
Now everybody's mad at you.
And
Let's have more focus on gym class.
that goes down in history as their legacy.
Yeah, Michelle's gonna be known for pissing off students in middle school and high school.
I remember solely back when I was in school. That's why I didn't like them. I didn't know anything about politics. I just knew
Yeah,
that you took away my Twinkies.
yeah. You took away the pizza that we had. That was
Yeah.
already terrible, but at least we could look forward to it. It wasn't the worst. You got rid of those cheese sticks that were hard as rock, but not as terrible as everything else.
That was primary ammunition during the food fights.
Yeah, yeah. You just pelt people with them. They're like fucking torpedoes, just long ways. You throw them like a football and just fucking smack them in the face.
Poke someone's eye out.
Yeah, with a cheese stick.
Cheese stick.
Yeah, like a breaded cheese stick. It was mostly bread too. It wasn't even like a lot
Yeah.
of cheese. It was mostly bread. Ridiculous. I do not miss that shit. Let me tell you.
Nope.
But yeah, so I mean, really just make sure you guys understand what you're looking at and use other sources other than the nutrition label to see what the hell you're eating, you know?
Yeah. Independent studies are great when it comes to that.
Yeah, there's not a lot, but if you could find one for a food that you're eating, definitely base it
Yep.
off of that, ideally. So got to be careful out there. You never know what we're intaking in the US. The UK, you don't got as much of a problem. EU, you don't got as much of a problem. Other countries, you don't have as much of a problem as we do. Australia, you guys are fucked. You're in the same boat as us. So if you're from Australia and you're listening to this, do the same thing we're saying. But
Yep.
everywhere else, do whatever you need to do based off of your guys' laws and how you guys' daily values work and stuff like that. But we should not be taking in 275 fucking grams of carbs a day on average. That's ridiculous.
Yep. All right, guys. We will be seeing you guys next week.
Yeah, thanks for listening, guys.
Yep. Bye, everybody.
See ya.